Wish was released in 2023 and was directed by Chris Buck. It tells the story of a girl named Asha who lives in the town of Roses, where King Magnifico can grant wishes for people, but he gives them wishes that only he decides are good enough. So it's up to Asha to make a wish and put an end to Magnifico's evil doings. So the newest Disney movie, Wish, has been getting a very mixed and divisive reception. A lot of people have been calling it very disappointing, very poorly made, but some people have been calling it a really good movie and a good way to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Disney company. Where do I come in? I just saw the movie today. Now, granted, my main reason for wanting to see the movie was mainly to see the villain Magnifico, played by Chris Pine, brilliant actor in my book. And after watching the movie for myself, so I went in optimistic, and I just went in open-minded and gave it a chance. I also want to dedicate this review to my good friend Darren Doherty. He's been really excited to see this film. He's been mainly excited, just like myself, to see the villain Magnifico. And you know what? I'm happy to say, I actually really enjoyed the movie. I actually think Wish was a better film than I was expecting. I was mainly just expecting a fun film, but I just really went in optimistic. I was just mainly hyped to see the villain. But you know what? I actually ended up really liking it. Now granted, there is a few flaws. The movie is not perfect, but I think it's a fun film. So the storyline is pretty decent. It's nicely written, has a good execution. Now, much like the Super Mario Bros. Movie, it's a very simple storyline. It's very straightforward, and it's just simple, really. We're following two characters, Asha and King Magnifico, and they are the two main characters you're following to the story. It's just very simple, and it kind of feels like there's not a whole lot to the story overall, which resulted in the first act feeling a little rushed. And there were certain points after the first act where I was going, oh, we're at this point already? Oh, okay. It just went by very, very quick. The second act was very good, and the third act, I have to admit, was actually amazing. I was very impressed with the third act, and I was just invested, and I was really engaged. Granted, a lot of the enjoyment for me is probably because of the villain, but other than the villain, I actually do think the third act was very good, as well as the first two acts. But just the first act I think could have been a little longer to kind of flesh out the dynamic with Asha and Magnifico a bit more. I think maybe if the first act was a little longer, we could have maybe developed the other characters slightly more too. They're good characters, they don't get a whole lot to them, but I'll talk about the characters later on. So the storyline is good, it has a lot of heart, and it does feel like an old-fashioned, old-school Disney movie. Much like how The Bad Guys felt like an old-school DreamWorks movie, Wish definitely feels like an old-school Disney movie. There was a lot of vibes I got from, especially, say, Aladdin or The Lion King. Hell, sometimes even Frozen. Maybe an odd choice to say, but that's just me. However, I do have to admit, I really like the storyline. It has a few issues. There were a few pacing moments that went by way too quick, and I do feel some of the jokes maybe fall a little bit flat, and there's some jokes where you're kind of going, that might be a little kiddie, but I have to admit, the jokes for the most part were actually pretty funny, and I was actually chuckle-worthing quite a lot, actually. I wasn't laughing my ass off, but I did chuckle quite a lot. So yeah, for the most part, the storyline is pretty decent. The animation is really nice. The art style actually does remind me of The Bad Guys quite a bit. And I know it's probably a bit of a weird comparison, but just like, there was something in the animation here where I was kind of going, that just looks slightly lack of texture, kind of. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I think the animation was really nice. The character designs were good, the backgrounds were good, the locations were good, the special effects were good, and the movements were very good too. There's a lot of creativity in the animation here. So I have to say, the animation, while at times it did look kind of cheap and unfinished to me, I do think the animation was very nice to look at. The characters of the film are definitely the strongest aspect of the film for me. I thought Asha was a pretty well-written protagonist, and I quite enjoyed her character arc in the film, and her interactions with the other characters were pretty nice too. Her friends are decent enough characters, and they do serve their purpose, but they don't get a whole lot of development to them. But her dynamic with the Star and Valentino is nicely written as well, and Valentino is actually a pretty funny character. The main villain Magnifico, however, oh boy. Now granted, it's more so the second half where he feels like a villain, but he is fantastic. He has so much personality and character to him, and he genuinely is just pure evil. He's especially outstanding in the third act, and Chris Pine does such a phenomenal job playing him. What a fantastic villain! So yeah, the film has a pretty likeable cast of characters. While granted some are developed much more than others, they're still good characters and they serve their purpose to the narrative. I was very, very impressed with the music. A lot of the songs are actually really, really good. Now, my favourite song has to be This Is the Thanks I Get. This song, as soon as it started playing in the movie, I was like, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. This was because when I heard the song for the first time a few weeks ago, I was like, this is really good. And hearing it in the cinema and seeing it in the film, it's just so, so good. Not only does it show more of Magnifico's personality, it's just such a great song, and I've been listening to it quite a lot, and I'm not gonna lie, yeah, it's stuck in my head. It's just so good, I think.
And this is the thanks I get. This is the thanks I get.
I have to say, Wish may not be a perfect movie, but I actually had a lot of fun, and I had much more fun than I initially was expecting. Overall, I have to say, Wish was very good in my book. The storyline does have a few pacing issues, but it is nicely written with some very nice visuals, likeable characters, an excellent villain, and some very good music. This is definitely a film that I'd be more than happy to see again. I'm going to give Wish an 8 out of 10. That's it for my review of the Disney movie Wish. And stay tuned for my next review. Until then, guys, what did you guys think of Wish? Let me know down in the comments below. Take care, everyone. Hope you guys have a great week. Thank you for watching, and skidoosh.